Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're watching from. It's another live stream. Welcome to the channel. Game week 10, guys, ahead of us. Done the stream a little bit in terms of a timing, a little bit differently today. I prefer to stream in the mornings, really, when my wife and daughter are sleeping, to be honest. So yeah, not going to stay on until the full deadline, but we'll stay on for at least an hour to have a chat, all things FPL. So hopefully you're well and we're ready for the week. But let's have a look at how the team's shaping up. So armband comfortably on Haaland. Pretty much certain that I'm going to be rolling the transfer, to be honest. But yeah, very happy with the team, to be honest. After wildcarding last week, though, I think this was, for anybody that watches the content, you're never really going to want to make a transfer straight after. How are your teams shaping up? Are we got any headaches? Any transfers already made? Any dilemmas? Pop them in the chat. Let's have a talk through some things, hey? Morning, Joel, mate. So starting Tony or Perisic? I'm going to go Tony on that one, to be honest. I think Perisic's minutes look like they're pretty comfortable at the moment, though. After Conte's comments about Doherty, saying that he didn't really feel like he was back to his best yet, pretty much isn't showing anything to get him into the team. I think that kind of puts Perisic in a comfortable position, but I'm still not 100% sold on him, to be honest. I still think he is a little bit of a risk. There are quite a lot of wing-back options for Conte to use. I just think Tony's nailed, right? That's the thing. It's just whether you want to play the risk or not, to be honest. Morning, Patrick. You all right, mate? But yeah, Perisic does pose, obviously, a tremendous amount of attacking threat. It's just like I say, whether you trust the minutes, to be honest. That's what it comes down to. Yeah, I mean, as well as that, I think just the Amex has been a difficult stadium to go to so far. I know that Potter's now gone, right? It is a different manager, but to put three past Liverpool, it just shows you that the team it was in a good place, right? The manager's taken over when the team was in a really solid position in terms of play style. So I just think it might be a little bit difficult for Spurs to break through, but we'll see. Evening, Tanoki. Hi, Godwin. Should you sell Andreas Pereira for Foden for -4? Well, I mean, in isolation, that's a huge upgrade, but it depends. It depends on what, I suppose, the two transfers are. You've only mentioned the one. I mean, I do like Phil Foden as a pick. I just think you've got to be careful that they do blank. City do blank in 12. So if you're going to take a -4, you've got to be prepared to either bench him through that blank and just don't force yourself into more minuses, basically, to get through game week 12. That's all I'd say. Just take a look at the forward options in terms of your next few weeks. Tanoki, I'm a little bit on the earlier side. I'm still going to stream probably for about an hour, maybe an hour and a half, depending on how things go. I was just saying at the beginning of the stream, I'd like to stream when my wife and my daughter are still kind of asleep. Really, it's a little bit easier on us. So with the deadline being so kind of late in the afternoon, I'll do it now. And I won't be streaming all the way up until deadline, but I won't change my moves. There's no, I don't think any going to be last minute news really that changes my ideas. So I just thought it's a relatively boring game week again for me really with rolling transfers. So I'll stay on for a bit, but not all the way up until deadline. Patrick, so you will not have any Arsenal for game week 11 against Leeds. Well, at the moment, no, but there is potential, I suppose, to bring in someone like maybe Martinelli. I could maybe look at Jesus. I mean, Mitrovic out was definitely a possible option for me based on the news. But because they play Bournemouth next week, at the moment he's on my bench and James Justin obviously plays ahead of him. But he would have been a possible change to Jesus because I could have got to him in one move. And I may still look at maybe even Ivan Toney to him, depending on how he performs. So I think, if I'm not wrong, he's got Chelsea coming up, but then his fixtures, so you've got Brighton and Chelsea in the next two, which, okay, they are at home, but both of these teams, I'm not sure, he's probably more likely actually to score against Chelsea rather than Brighton, so I potentially could go Jesus. It just depends on how my squad is going to be looking. I need to have realistically 2 transfers going into game week 13. That's the ideal situation, so we'll see. Yes, Tanoki, you did mention those moves. I think, Maddison and Bowen. Have you already transferred in Maddison ahead of his price rise again? Because didn't he go up again to 8.1? Oh, 8.2, sorry. Wow. So I think I bought him at 7.9. I can't remember, but that's crazy. So, if you bought him ahead of that, that's even better. And Bowen's got a favourable fixture against Fulham. The only thing I would say about him, though, is that didn't he play like 70, 80 minutes in Europa? Yeah. I kind of see the logic there. Forest is a great fixture to target. It's just Aston Villa. Like, do you remember on the last stream, obviously you were here, and there was a couple of guys I think mentioning Watkins and just Aston Villa assets in general. Their fixtures look great, but then when you watch them, they couldn't score against a 10-man Leeds. Now, I know Messier did make some good saves or whatever, but I still think that they're just not a team that are ticking, right, from an attacking point of view. But yeah, that's great that you've got him before both the prices. Yeah, it's both the rises. Yeah, it's great. Well played, George. 95-point week. Fantastic score, mate. Almost at that 100 mark, right? There was just so many good scores last week. I just think, Maddison just absolutely skyrocketed the rank. I think before that Leicester game, I was sat at 1.6 million, I think, on livefpl.net. I think I'd basically thought to myself, this is going to be a red arrow regardless. And I think on the, I can't remember what stream it was or video it was. It might have been on the breakdown video. It was ahead of the fixture. And I said, if, he gets a double digit 10 points, I might still have like a 200k red arrow. And then he goes and scores 18, which absolutely skyrocketed me. But really good move with Ward as well, mate. 8 points. It's very nice. Yeah, I still think it's a long-term upgrade, really, going to Bowen. I think, like you say, eye test-wise, he's definitely proved that he's more than capable. And yet, like you say, Bailey, if he's injured anyway, I just, the thing is with him, he's just so risky to own. He just seems like, from the beginning, he's just been flagged and he's been started, he's been benched. I feel like he's a really good player, but just in this Villa squad at the moment, something's not quite right. I don't know what Gerrard needs to do, but something's not quite right. So I think it's a great move. Patrick bench Pope for Meslier last week. I mean, yeah, that's absolutely perfect, really. And didn't you? I think you mentioned that you've got rid of Meslier now, haven't you? Down to Iverson for some funds. George agreed, mate. Matters crazy. I just think at this point, right, like I know this isn't FPL related, but he's got to go to the World Cup for England, surely. I know that we've got plenty of options of talent in that midfield area, but I'd much prefer to take him over some of the other options Southgate took. Yeah, true. Tanoki, we did mention Andreas over those two. Almiron, I think I tweeted it out. I can't believe it. There was a couple of people in the stream, right, that asked should they start him, and my crap advice, I suppose, said don't do it. But yeah, I mean, look again. That's the situations in FPL where it's like it is variance. Like, I'm sorry, but Almiron showed nothing from an underlying stats perspective or even an eye test perspective that he was going to go and score 2 goals like that. So you know, it's Andreas is on all set pieces. Almiron isn't. So in terms of FPL talk, I think Andreas was still probably the better option over the two of them. Just turns out that way that they scored. Yeah, and Wilson scored as well. Just so crazy, really. But I still think, again, I'm going to go back to that kind of, the decision making on Wilson. I think he is a good FPL asset. I mentioned that, but the problem I have with him is he's injury prone. And in terms of Isak, I don't know what happens. When Isak's back, does he just take that spot straight away? Like, Wilson's not getting any younger, is he? He's moving on a bit. He's played for Eddie Howe for a long time, so of course he's always going to do well under him, in my opinion. But I still think he's not worth it. George, I've took a -4 this week. Trent and Bailey out for Zaha and Justin. Injuries forced the hit. Yeah, I think Bailey's injury obviously makes a bit of a kind of nuisance to some managers, but Zaha in, mate. That's got to be, that's a premium transfer, to be honest. He's got to be the target for most managers this week. Him and Maddison, I think, are probably the top two, I would say, from a midfield perspective. And I like the James Justin move. Like, I'm telling you, I really do think that I bought him at 4.3 on the wild card, and I just think that really, I mentioned it before when I made the wild card, that having bench cover that was a little bit stronger than what I had from game weeks 1 to 8, I was kind of I wanted to do that, really, not for a bench boost, but just to generally cover the Champions League fixtures and other kind of fixture congestion in this month. There's so many fixtures, and I think James Justin looked great. He looked great again. I know it's Forest, but I think that's a great move as well, mate. Patrick, yes, Iverson to be able to start Jesus next week alongside Kane and Hart. I think that front three, mate, if you've made that move respective of the next one, which is just, it's great planning. And I think, Jesus next week alongside those two is that's a phenomenal front three. Spurs got Everton next week, is it? Is it Everton? Yeah, at home. Very nice fixture for Kane. Any consideration of rolling a transfer instead of going Bailey to Bowen was to allow flexibility next week? Yeah, exactly. I think that's the point. Right? This is where we have the planning, right? It's just giving you that ability to react, and that's exactly what you've done. Bailey's injured, you react. It's just it's perfect, really. And I agree, George. I think Leicester. This fixture run definitely helps, but I've mentioned it in other videos before. But fixtures create form. It's very easy to just jump onto, let's say, Lissandro Trossard at the moment, or Phil Foden, or players like that. But in terms of long-term hold, the fixtures do determine the form. Like, it's only ever so often that you'll get, Trossard scoring a hat-trick against Liverpool. On paper, it's not an easy fixture, but then he's gone and done it. He's created the variance in the game, which, if you've owned him, you're lucky. But I've seen loads of managers that benched him, and he had a 20-point haul. So I think that for Leicester, it's a great run. We're going to see some numbers from this man here. He's already got a couple of assists, right? So he had an assist against Arsenal and an assist against Tottenham. So out of the fixtures that they've had, obviously, bar Man United, Chelsea, he's had 2 assists in arguably some of the hardest fixtures in the game. So I think that you're right. I think he's going to be doing very, very well in the next few weeks. And for Farn, that's really unlucky though with going for him. I just think that at that price point for Chelsea defence, you can't make that up, really. Risking it and starting Mitro. If he doesn't play, then Nico comes on in against Villa, who don't look great. Well, it's Forest at home. They do concede goals, though. This is the thing. If Villa are going to score against anybody, you'd expect it to be Forest, I suppose. But Nico's not a bad option. Like, I think at this point, he's not scored massively. He's got an assist, right, for that penalty that day. But I think he's a solid option anyway. Godwin, which 2 players will I start this game week? Ivan, Tony, Trippier, Arnold and Nico Williams. Well, for me personally, obviously I've got Tony and Trippier in. If I had Trent, I'm not sure that I would play him, to be honest. I think against Arsenal, that's just a really tricky fixture. And we've already just mentioned Nico Williams. I think against Villa he has potential for the clean sheet because they're not very good at moving forward, but I think Tony and Trippier, to be honest. Bailey is causing me a headache too. I do not want him to drop in price because the quality of my goalkeeper depends on it for my Game Week 12 wildcard. Yeah, I mean, I don't think Bailey will drop, to be honest with you. I don't think his ownership is so high to the point where a lot of people will be selling him. But it's a bit weird with the price points this year. I'm not too sure what's happening. Like a lot of the websites that I use to kind of track some of the potential rises and falls, you know, Mitro going down in price. I don't think he was anywhere near a drop and then dropped. So it's a bit hard to tell really if he'll drop in price. But I hope for your sake he doesn't, mate. Keeps the value. Tanoki, my issue in the coming week is owning Cancelo, Martinelli and Haaland, yeah. I think, you know, look at it this way. I know that, again, this is something that I spoke about in the wildcard draft. My view with Cancelo is I'm still on the fence with him as well personally, but you know, Trent hasn't been performing fantastically, but Liverpool do have an amazing run of fixtures from game week 12 onwards, right? So there is potential. Now he's dropped in price so much. I think Trent is 7.3 now, and may even drop even more after this game, right? If he blanks against Arsenal, my anticipation is he's probably going to be sold even more. So I know that the 13 onwards run for City is absolutely phenomenal, right? But we're only really interested up until game week 16. So in these 4 fixtures, it's pretty good. However, with Liverpool, you could just make the move from Cancelo to Trent. That's something that I'm eyeing up. They've got Tottenham in game week 15, which is maybe a little bit tricky. But again, he's got almost, you know, or Trent will have equally the similar fixtures in terms of difficulty. So something to consider. It's an easy move really in terms of value if you wanted to go down that route. And I like personally holding on to Martinelli and Haaland. You've got so much value tied up in Martinelli. I don't think removing him at this point makes sense. Plus he's got, I think, Leeds in game week 11, and then it's just a great run. So again, I don't think you should be selling him. Andreas isn't bad cover as well. So I don't know. I don't think you've got two major concerns there. You have got 3 blanking players, but you've got enough cover, in my opinion, or ways to deal with it. So yeah, as George has just mentioned, Cancelo to Trent. See, that's the thing. I mean, you've said Martinelli to someone in form, which I disagree with, and then obviously, yeah, benching Haaland, I agree. Got that Ward or Pope decision again. I think, to be honest, Bournemouth are definitely going to be the target to fixture the fixture to target. The target to fixture, what was that? The fixture to target over Brentford. Tony's just got something in his locker at all times, whereas I think Bournemouth are just a little bit weaker in attack. Considering also Emerson to Justin and bench all 3. That's a solid option. That's a solid option as well. I mean, if we're looking at 12 in isolation, again, James Justin's fixture against Leeds at home, very favourable. And this is what I was mentioning when I put him into the team. If you're ever struggling for bench cover, there's only really City in 14 that's a difficult fixture for Leicester, in my opinion. West Ham could be tricky in 16, but look at that run. It's absolutely wonderful, to be honest. So I think, yeah, he's definitely a solid option. One to watch for this week as well against Bournemouth. Let's see how he performs. Only 1.5% owned as well, so a little bit of a differential. Okay. Fair enough. I thought you naturally assumed you would have had him from the beginning. So at 6.4, that's not as much. If you would have owned him from 6, I would have been much more reluctant to obviously sell to keep him. Reluctant to sell him. That's what I meant. Which goalkeeper will I start? Ward against Bournemouth or Sanchez against Tottenham? It's got to be Ward against Bournemouth, mate. I think that he's going to be much more confident now. I'm not saying that the clean sheet is just all of a sudden fixed him, but I think against Bournemouth, you've surely got to back Leicester for that clean sheet, right? Is Kerr a good option? He's currently starting at right back. I'm not sure yet. I just think that, it's not... There's no eye tests or statistics really that I think back up him starting in an FPL team, to be honest. I think he's a possible wait and see for me. Morning, Keith. How you doing? Haven't seen you for a while. Hope you're well. Is it worth triple captaining Haaland? I mean, look, I actually don't think now in this season so far there's going to be a fucking wrong week to triple captain this guy. Like he's an absolute machine. He's only played 45 minutes in Europe, right? 2 games, 5 goals, hat-trick against us, and then 2 goals against Copenhagen. Just making football he just makes everything look like a farmers league. He's absolutely insane. So I don't actually think it's a bad option. The thing is with it though, you've just got to remember that if you triple captain on a single game week, at some point City are going to double, and you've got to bank that Haaland on a double game week, he could easily reach like 30, 40 points in a double game week. So that's where I'm probably going to be using it. Might be with the rest of the game, but just be conscious that you might get ahead now, but when they double, your rank will absolutely plummet, right? If he smashes it across 2 games. Fair enough, mate. Well, glad to have you with us. Welcome back. So if this was 2 game weeks ago, I would prefer wildcarding after the blank. Yeah, I think from 12 to 16 though, there is some fixtures really that we can kind of target, I suppose. So I'm not a massive hater of it. I'm not a lover of it either, really, which is why I decided to game week 9 wildcard instead. But there is some upside to it. Scamacca looks on fire. Is it worth getting him in? I think I do like him, actually, as a differential option. My problem is that I'm still not convinced that Antonio doesn't get the nod from Moyes in the Premier League in terms of starting. So it's just such a minutes issue that there's no, in my opinion, value to bringing him in. Not until at least, if we know Antonio's injured, for example, then 100% I would say he's a solid choice. Syed, I messed up last week, captaining Salah and not Haaland, so need to catch up quickly. That's the thing, though. You this game is about patience, right? Like, you'll get the catch-up potentially now by triple captaining, but then you've got... Okay, there's 2 sides of the argument, right? What if Haaland blanks? It's unlikely, but let's say what if he blanks and you triple captain him? You only get 6 points. So you're not going to be catching up in that scenario. You're hoping that he scores another hat-trick. Then it's justified that you've triple captained him. The other side of it is that, yes, you get the green arrow potentially now, this week, but I promise you that in the new year, when we've got double game weeks, Haaland's ownership is so massive that I anticipate a lot of people are going to be triple captaining him on a double game week. So my advice is to just calm down with it, slow down with it, think about your decisions, and just don't use the chip. Just accept that you've red arrowed, you made the mistake. Salah against Brighton, I can't really even say was a mistake. He was still a good option, right? Andy from Let's Talk FPL did the same thing. The decision making was still sound, so don't let it worry you too much. Just own it, mate, and move forward with it. If Scamacca does well versus Fulham, that's 2 starts in a row. I back him to go on a bit of a run. Listen, again, for me, he's a differential, and that's what differentials offer you. They offer you that kind of, punt territory. You could probably get something from them in terms of a green arrow if they do well. For me as well, though, you've got to remember there's so many good options in the forward positions at the moment, with Haaland, with Tony, with even Callum Wilson to some degree, Isak, Mitrovic. There's just so many options up front that you might just end up playing ping pong between a couple of options. So it's up to you whether you think Scamacca's going to be long-term hold. And exactly what Tanoki said as well, don't be too eager with catching up. It's not a massive issue. Syed Kadir, Bowen, Barnes, Sterling, Rashford or Trossard for a short-term up to at least game week 12-13. Planning to drop Salah and then considering... Okay. Personally, I do like Sterling. but I'm not sure. Barnes is also a really tempting pick for me, to be honest. If you don't own Maddison, he's got some great fixtures as well, of course. So I think maybe he's a short-term punt, if that's the type of thing you're looking for. Rashford, for me, is more game week 14 onwards from a Man United perspective. So I would say Barnes or Sterling for me in terms of short-term. Mark, hello, mate. Gay, Estupinan, Zuma for Soufal. So this is a transfer, isn't it? So, I mean, I wouldn't go Zuma for Soufal just because it's a sideways move, I guess. I'd maybe go Gay, to be honest. I think, to be honest, he's... With Crystal Palace's fixtures, I mean, I've got Guaita in goal, right? This is a pretty good run. And if you only need him short term, then I think, to be honest, he's definitely worth an option. And yeah, James Justin, of course, in this house at the moment is the premium pick. Don't know about Palace defence with Anderson out injured. Yeah, that is a good point. He does play a massive role for Palace, but we'll see. We'll see. Oh, you already have Justin. Fair enough. Keith, as long as the reason is sound, it's never a mistake. Who would have thought against United Haaland would get 5 returns to Salah's 1? Yeah, exactly. That is just FPL. That is the variance. So captaining Salah against Brighton, like I say, it wasn't a mistake. You just have to own the decision making behind it, right? It's just, and unfortunate for those managers, it meant a massive red arrow, but it's so condensed. The ranks really at this point, like I'm 900k, but I'm like 20 points off of 200k. That's nothing. That's a 1 week swing quite easily. So I mean, it's just, you know, the ranks aren't really that massively important this season, in my opinion. Not at this stage. We'll see maybe post World Cup we might start seeing a bit of a break away from the top 100k, but at the moment it's still very close. No worries, Saeed. Look, this is what I'm here for at the end of the day. It's any headaches, any kind of decisions that you want help with. That's my advice to you. Happy that I pronounced my name correctly in order. Perfect, mate. If you have Maddison, then I think Barnes is potentially a good option as well. Obviously, if you're happy to hold double Leicester midfield. Thank you for the sub as well. Appreciate it, mate. Appreciate it. I'm glad I didn't butcher your name as well. Patrick, and what do you prefer now, 4-0 or 6-3 for Man U against City? Do you know what? To be honest, I actually said that the 6-3 scoreline, I can't say I was happy about it, right? I'm disappointed with it, but to get 3 goals. Now, the issue I have with it is that City basically put out their reserve team at about 60 minutes, right? They didn't keep their strongest 11 on, so scoring 3 goals as sort of consolation wasn't against their starting 11. So I don't know. It's a tricky one. I think I do prefer the 6-3 over the 4-0, to be honest. Dave, how about Coutinho? Listen, last season I definitely jumped on the bandwagon with him. I think he looked phenomenal, and he was bagging in the goals left, right, and centre. But this season he's done pretty much nothing to showcase anything for me as an FPL pick. So I think there's better midfield options, mate. I'm not sure what his price point is now, but surely if you're looking to transfer a midfielder in, it's got to be Zaha. Mark Castley's team squad is Pope, Ward, Cancelo, James, Trippier, Justin, Soufal, Maddison, Bowen, Zaha, Martinelli, Andreas, Haaland, Kane, Mitrovic. Very strong team, Mark. Very, very good. Very, very good. But I can understand why you kind of want to remove Soufal, I guess. Well, what would you start? Maybe go Ward, Cancelo, James, Trippier, Justin. You'd go Maddison, Bowen, Zaha, Martinelli, more than likely. I mean, Martinelli against Liverpool, it's not ideal, but I still think it's solid. I mean, I don't think you actually need to make a transfer. You've got bench cover with Andreas, so I don't know. It depends on what your structure of your team moving forward is going to be, I suppose. Keith, just perma-captain Haaland, you can't go wrong. Yeah, I mean, look, at this point, what's his ownership now? 83? 83.8% of managers own him. So, nearly 16% of the game don't. They're probably disengaged managers, which is... I mean, I did see a tweet, though, from Official Fantasy League. The highest ranked player without Erling Haaland is actually sat at 36,000, which is absolutely crazy to me. Absolutely crazy. But you're right. Pretty much, I think, captain's armband on him all the time. Will Anthony Gordon start? I think so. I mean, is there any news? Have we had anything to say that he won't? I mean, I've got, in terms of the press conference, it looks like the only kind of key headline was that Calvert-Lewin may be back. So I don't think Gordon will miss out. Doctor, I'm in a bit of a tricky situation. I have to start 2 Forest players. I can transfer both out next week. So if Forest get a clean sheet, it could go very well. And then, of course, there's the opposite. So, yeah, I mean, starting 2 Forest players. I mean, Nico, I think it has the potential, right? So as starting him, which I'm assuming is one of your Forest players, he's surely got to remain. I think against Villa, it's not the worst fixture for them, so maybe hold him. But if your second Forest player is transferable, then if you've got the funds to it, maybe if it's a midfielder, go for Zaha. If it's a forward, then maybe go for someone like Tony. Not sure if I'd go with anybody else really with Mitrovic out. Abdullah, will Soufal start? I'm not sure, to be honest. I haven't really been following West Ham much. Let me just I'll tell you what we'll have a look at. I'm not sure how many minutes he played in the European fixture. Yeah, so he did play at right back. And he played the whole time, right? Yeah. Well, there you go. Doctor saying as a West Ham fan, Soufal won't start. Kerr will be playing. So, yeah, that's kind of makes sense, I guess. With 2 transfers, Soufal to gain is a luxury transfer. I agree, mate. If you've got 2 in the bank, then it's, I suppose, yeah. No wonder you needed to make a transfer. I was saying that you didn't need to, right? Marco Silva needs to tell us if Mitro is playing or not. I think personally, look, don't necessarily wait on the press conference with Mitro. I watched FPL Focal's live stream with Raptor, and Raptor made a really good point that, to be honest, he didn't mention the thing that I will mention in a minute, but he basically said that you start him if you've got him, based on the fact that if he does start against West Ham, you'd hope for a return. If he doesn't, then just make sure that you've got someone on the bench to cover him. In my case, personally, I had a good option in James Justin, which is why he sat on the bench. And that's something that Raptor didn't mention in the stream. If you've got a solid option, in my opinion, to replace or bench Mitro, then do it. I just don't think it's worth the risk. If he comes on for 30 minutes at the end, a cameo appearance, I think West Ham can probably keep Fulham out. So I'm happy to own Justin instead. Tanoki, between Andreas, Nico and Emerson, who would you place in first bench slot? So yeah, we're just talking about it, I guess. I think I would probably put... I'd probably put Emerson. I know that's... I don't know, mate, to be honest. I mean, again, let me go back to... Did Creswell play? Is Emerson looking like he's going to be starting this game? Because if so, then I think... Okay, it was Johnson that played left back. Emerson played basically like a left wing back role. I mean, it's tricky. If he's played all those minutes, I'm not sure. Maybe I would go with I'd go with Nico then, based on minutes. Would it be worth spending 0.2 mil more to bring in Mitchell over Gay? I think that Mitchell provides maybe if you're going to go for an attacking Crystal Palace defender, he offers maybe a little bit more threat. He has got the assist potential. I think he's potentially to win penalties. His low ball crossing isn't too bad. So maybe it's worth it. But the thing is, Mark, what I would recommend to everybody is just, you go onto a planning website for your team and just check what that 0.2 might mean later on. Just in case of maybe injuries, anything else, do you want the wiggle room to be able to go to somebody else? And if there's a specific target in mind, let's say you want Mo Salah and he's at price point A, make sure that you've got enough money to move to him. That would be my recommendation. Syed, can you imagine Pep benching Haaland this week to rest him for Liverpool? I mean, to be honest, there's nothing beyond Pep Guardiola, to be honest. I just think, though, with Haaland at this point, he can't refuse him to be breaking the records at the rate that he's breaking them. Can you imagine being Haaland? You'd just be saying to the manager, what are you doing? Like, you need to be starting me, surely. I just don't think he does get benched at this point. But stranger things have happened in football, mate. Is Gay injured? Not that I know of, Abdullah. I'm not 100% sure, but I don't think he is. Dr. Moyes always sticks with a team that gets the win, and that team versus Wolves will be replicated versus Fulham, just with Fornals in for Cornet because of injury. Yeah, I mean, that does make a lot of sense. Moyes likes playing with a quite a small squad as well, doesn't he? So he doesn't really like rotating that much. I think he's been forced to with the European fixtures, though. I'm not going to lie. I don't think it's normally his managerial style, though. I think when West Ham kicked on fully and got into Europe, that was with a relatively small squad. I might be completely wrong, but I think that's from what I kind of gathered from watching them. Yeah, Tanoki, Emerson minutes risk for the most part in the Prem. I would go Nico then, to be honest, as a first bench option. Let's just go Nico. I think against Villa, he's surely got the best chance of a clean sheet, right? To be fair, Emerson, when he gets brought on, he plays left wing or very high up the pitch. Fair enough. I mean, I haven't watched the European games, I suppose, because United are playing on Thursday nights as well. It's I haven't watched many of their games, but if he seems that attacking for that price point, and if he does get a Premier League sort of run, then maybe he's worth it in the long term, right? But at the moment, maybe he's a minute's risk, as you say. Well, Mark, if you are reluctant about 0.2, your team is just fine with more squad value. I had a mess start. Yeah, I mean, I agree. If you're reluctant about it, then there's no immediate need to do it. Keith, worst case scenario for Haaland is a first half hat-trick. City winning 5-0 and subbed. Other than that, he will play 60 minutes at least. I mean, it's absolutely insane, isn't it, that we're talking about another hat-trick for him, and just in the first half. It just shows you what this man's doing in the world of football. It's absolutely nuts. They scored 11 goals in 2 games. It's just, they are a different beast. If they don't win the treble this season, then something's gone wrong. They'd have to just suffer so badly with injuries, I think, this season. But even then, they've got backup cover, like, Alvarez, they've got Mahrez. They've just got so many good players. Gomez looks good as well. But yeah, you're right. Anyway, worst case scenario, he plays 60 minutes for us, but just there is no other captaincy option, right? Like he is the man to go with. Interesting. I've not looked at the statistics, to be honest, of City versus Southampton. I'm really not. The thing that I saw, just maybe I've gone a bit blinkered and I've not checked the history of them, but I've just gone full throttle on pretty much. Like there's just no need to ever take the armband off Haaland. We've also got the situation that the Saints have conceded 9 goals plus, right? Multiple times. Don't agree with a treble take. Fair enough. I just think that they're unstoppable at the moment. They are just absolutely unstoppable. I think that the thing is with Haaland, right? Like I'm not really a gambling man, but just if I was to put money on them, I think that they would do it this season. Just because I know it's a very, very difficult thing to do. I know it is. 3 major trophies is very, very difficult. With fixture congestion, Haaland isn't just the only answer. They just seem to be a very, very large grade above anybody else in Europe and in the Premier League. The FA Cup obviously can be a bit tricky because you just get strange results in that cup. It's a very strange one, but yeah, I don't know. I just think that it's so difficult from an eye test perspective to see any other team coming out and doing something against them. Syed Salim, I'm glad I found your channel, liked and subscribed, top lad. Thank you very much, mate. Welcome to the channel, appreciated. I think we're closing in now on 400 subscribers, which would be absolutely phenomenal if we can get there. I haven't looked at the numbers, but 387. Appreciate everybody that's subscribed, that's new to the channel. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's the first season really that I've streamed, to be honest, or created content. I've played FPL for 4 or 5 years. I'm just, essentially documenting the journey with people, right? Like I wanted to showcase kind of my knowledge, I suppose, of FPL and football with people, and just thought I'd start the channel. So glad you like it, mate. And yeah, see you in the next videos, hopefully. Football 2000. Hello, everyone. Your thoughts on who should be my first pick between Ward and Henderson for this game week? I mean, Henderson, he's got the potential, I suppose, for save points against Villa. I would say that they've got a likelihood of a clean sheet, but I think, to be honest, Ward, I can't believe I'm saying it, but I do think you start him, mate. I think you start Ward against Bournemouth. It just makes more sense. I think Villa pose maybe a little bit more of an attacking threat than Bournemouth do, so I think Ward. Zakaria, De Silva and 2.5 million in the bank. Who should I bring in? De Silva and 2.5 million. Is De Silva 4.5, 4.6? What does that give you? 7.1, 7.2? Can you get Zaha in? Or is he out? Is he 7.4 now? I don't think you can you? Who do you bring in at that price point? Barnes, maybe? I mean, Barnes would be a differential, I suppose. If you own Maddison already, again, we've spoke about it to somebody else. Maybe he's a good option. Really, they're the only kind of two that I would recommend, though, I think. Zaha or Barnes. Tanoki, they just got the squad to never waver in the face of injuries in the league. But 11 versus 11 on any day, the Cups could leave them knocked out. Which, again, going back to the FA Cup, like part of the treble, I suppose, is that anything can happen in that. But they just look too strong. I mean, look at Newcastle, right? They got the 3-3. They can be beaten. They can be knocked back. There's 100% no doubts in my mind that something can happen to them. But at the moment, it just looks very improbable. FPL Ronnie, -4 for Soufal to Gahey. If you're starting Gahey, then yes, I think that's not too bad. I would say, though, maybe double check your bench cover. If you've got a potential option, then maybe it's not worth the -4. Why Sterling? I personally don't like him as an option because Chelsea don't really score a lot and it mostly likely comes from their fullbacks. Yeah, I mean, basically the logic was that I chose him in the wild card because he was kind of like a short-term punt for me. So ultimately I was happy taking the risk on him. The thought process was that he matches Mo Salah, really, as that kind of like medium premium, if you like. He's only 10 million. So it gave me a kind of a bit more flexibility with the money to get to the squad that I wanted to get to with leaving some money in the bank. I think he matches one of the other premiums, especially with De Bruyne blanking in 12. That was my logic. He matches the same points and he's a differential. So that's why I like him. He probably gets moved on for me, Doctor, to be honest, at some point. But you're right. Most of the points do come from, let's say, Reece James, Chilwell and so on. But I do like him as a differential. Football 2000, thanks mate, keep up the good work, like and sub from me. Thank you very much, appreciated bud. Again, I will no doubt see you in another video sometime soon. Keith, last 3 games against Southampton City have only won 1. Wow, interesting stat mate, that is. Interesting stat indeed. But I think this might be a bit of a, maybe not, maybe I'm wrong, but you know, I think what time's the game on? 3 o'clock today. 3 o'clock kickoffs. I mean, it's not 12:30. You know, there's no early kickoff today. So, I don't know. Maybe the 3 o'clock kickoff suits and they do some damage. It's a home fixture as well, which I don't know. I can't see anything but a Manchester City win here. FPL Ronnie, Nico Williams and Andreas. So, Soufal on the bench as Mitro is injured. Doing Pope to Martinez next week and De Bruyne to Salah in game week 12. So you're going to have to take the -4 at some point. Then I would say more than likely you don't take the -4 this week then, because that Soufal to Gay move isn't maybe as strong as taking the -4, let's say, to attack someone like Mo Salah. He's a premium. It kind of maybe justifies the -4 a little bit more. So I would say just start Nico. Just don't spend effort transferring goalkeepers. Yeah, I mean, Newcastle have still got a solid amount of defensive statistics to back him up, I suppose. He's got the potential for save points against Man United and other people. So I'm by no means saying City will struggle. I'm thinking 5+. Can you imagine only winning one of their last 3 against them and putting 5+ past them today? You need money for Salah. Okay, I mean, fair enough. But I just think for this week as an isolated situation, let's say, I know you're looking later down the line as well, but you have bench cover. That's the point of Nico Williams and Andreas, to be honest with you, mate. Like, that's my logic anyway, is there's no need for a -4 if you've got cover. It's just silly, really, to be honest. If you're moving the -4 for a premium, though, and you're attacking the game week, that's a little bit different in my eyes. If you want to keep up with the pack or you want to target someone that seems to be in a lot of wild cards, for example, that's more logical. Okay, Keith, mate, take care. I don't think I'll be streaming all afternoon, but if I don't see you back, mate, then yeah, enjoy the game week. Good luck for you, mate. Annual 9-0, maybe. That's the thing, as mentioned when Keith spoke about the City Southampton games. The thing, Southampton, the first thing I thought of once he scored the hat trick against United was Saints are in trouble, surely. Like, there's no way. They conceded so many goals before, and they've, like you say, historically 9 goals conceded. This could be an absolute history in the making. He could score a double hat trick here. He could score 6 goals. Sorry for the spam, guys. I moderate my own chat, so bear with me a second. Sorted. Tanoki, yeah, besides taking the -4 later is better than now. Who knows, after the game week, you don't feel like it anymore. That is a very good point. I think you talked me out of a -4, to be honest, before. And I think that same logic has now been applied for sort of that majority of the time now. It's just not worth. Unless you're attacking a premium, in my opinion. It just doesn't really make sense. Like last season, I made way too many decisions rashly. That's the problem. I've slowed down a little bit this season and just taken my time, and I think it has helped slowly increase the rank. Simpa, if I have Trent, Jesus and Diaz in my team, who should I bench or keep them all? I mean, it's a tricky fixture, right? For more than actually, I would say more for Liverpool than Arsenal, to be honest, on current form. So for me, if you had to bench somebody, then Trent is a possible bench out of the 3 of them. What I would say though is it is dependent massively on who you're bringing in. Like who are your bench options? Tor 1, start Mitro and have Soufal, Nico on bench and roll the transfer. 2, upgrade Soufal, 1.4 in the bank. Start Mitro and have Soufal, Nico on the bench and roll, or upgrade Soufal. I mean, I think, again, it goes back to what I mentioned to Mark, really. I think there's 2 parts to it. The first part is, are you going to be using that 1.4 for any other transfer in the future? Do you want somebody like De Bruyne, like Salah, like Son or Kane or any one of those premiums, and you're not quite there yet and you want the money to be able to get to them? If the answer's no, then potentially upgrade Soufal to someone with as little money as possible. So, doing something like Soufal to James Justin, for example. On this channel at the moment, we seem to, everybody's favouring Justin as a pick. I like him as a differential. Yeah, indeed, as well as what Tanoki's just said. Who are you upgrading him to? A 5.5, maybe 5 million defender, in my opinion, isn't worth it. There's plenty of other good options at 4.3, 4.4. You've got Gay as well that's been mentioned on the stream so far. I think you've got options. So I wouldn't necessarily consider it an upgrade, but I would definitely consider it a move that you can make, right? Ramsdale or Ward. I'm again, on this channel, I don't believe I'm saying it, but just you've got to go for Ward there, right? Against Bournemouth, you've got to be back in a clean sheet. Whereas with the Arsenal-Liverpool game, surely Liverpool are scoring. I can just see this being a really open game. Tor, for example, Chilwell already have De Bruyne. Chilwell for me is a minutes risk though. Like, I know Cucurella was out with illness. Is he still considered out? I don't know. Is there any updates on him? So he's non-flagged anymore. So Cucurella might get the nod ahead of Chilwell. I don't know. I just think it. Like Chelsea, yes, for sure, their wing backs are great options, but Chilwell as an FPL, I haven't seen enough minutes for him. I just think that you keep it nice and simple. James Justin, Gahey, someone that you know are going to be minutes. So don't know about Chilwell exactly. I just think he's a bit of a risk. Sanoki agrees. Ward over Ramsdale, yeah. Pritesh, Salah and Jesus for Kane and Sterling. 2 seconds. Salah and Jesus for Kane and Sterling. I don't think so, mate. To be honest, I think you keep Salah and Jesus. I know they're playing each other, but they're attacking players. It doesn't matter about them playing each other, right? Like, they just wipe out each other. Well, Jesus wipes out Salah's 1 clean sheet point. It's not like an attacker versus a defender. I like Kane and Sterling in terms of fixtures, but the move don't make sense to me because you've got Jesus against Leeds next week, which you're going to want him for 100%. So that move doesn't make sense, and you might as well keep Salah at this point. Will Diaz start today? I hope so. I mean, I've obviously got him in the team. I did think after he only played for 45 minutes in that last fixture against Brighton that it was maybe a little bit risky keeping him. But surely, after coming on and getting an assist, he starts. I mentioned it in my breakdown video. I think he does start. Sanoki Pritesh, the question is, if you have the capability to take that 2 transfers now, I think it's a sideways move. Yeah, again, it just, there isn't, I don't think you're really targeting too much of a long-term move there. You're just looking at the isolated, maybe Liverpool versus Arsenal fixture, which is maybe forcing you to make the decision. So just maybe think about something else. Mohamed Mitrovic update. No update as of yet, I don't think, to be honest. I haven't been fully checking because I'm personally happy to be benching him. But I would say that if you've got a decision to make on him, whether to bench or start him, if you've got bench cover like I had James Justin, which I was happy to play ahead of him, then just bench him. But if you're worried that he might do some damage or you think there's a potential for him to start, then just play him and just put your first bench option as the best possible cover. That would be my kind of Mitrovic advice. Guaita or Ward? Oh, Jack, that's a difficult one, mate. I'm gonna have to back Guaita because he's in my team. But I do like Ward as an option. As mentioned already, against Bournemouth, it's a fantastic fixture. Francesco Ward, definitely, mate, over Pope. I think Brentford are obviously a better team from an attacking standpoint than Bournemouth. So as an isolated option, it's got to be Ward ahead of him. Mitrovic is a doubt. Yes, indeed, mate, he is. His Army Morning, your take on Costa for a short punt? I don't like it, mate. He just, the thing is with Costa, I mean, signing him, let alone as an FPL asset, I don't really understand it from a Wolves perspective. He's just not the same player that he was, right? He needs to be match fit. Wolves have scored 3 goals, by the way, in the Premier League so far, and they're playing Chelsea. I don't like it, mate, personally. Mohamed, I have Justin and Malacia on the bench. I would say play Justin, like I have. That's just my personal take on it, to be honest. There'll be other people probably advising differently, maybe starting Mitrovic ahead of James Justin, but my advice, as is on the screen, mate, is to play James Justin ahead of him. His Army, thank you. Like the stream, guys, and don't forget to subscribe. Thank you very much, mate. Appreciated. And good luck, mate. If you leave in the stream, then good luck for this week, pal. What time are we on? Right, 5 to 12. So I'm probably going to wrap up in about 10 minutes or so, guys. But like I say, I'm not going to stay on all the way until half 1 English time for the deadline. It's I can hear the wife and the daughter have woke up. So I'll go and spend some time with them in the afternoon. Sanoki, Brentford haven't scored the last 2 game weeks, but yeah, Pope versus Ward is tough. I think, to be honest though, that if you're gonna back one of the teams in a Brentford versus Bournemouth situation, surely you're going to be saying that Brentford have more attacking prowess than Bournemouth. And that would be the point that I make. Ward versus Bournemouth, Pope versus Brentford. I just think it's got to be Ward. Seems like that's a big headache for a lot of people, right? We've had a few comments now. Who should they start, Ward or Pope? I think it's got to be Ward. Don't get me wrong, I like Nick Pope. I think he's an absolutely great goalkeeper. I had him in, for it was only 1 week because Sanchez blanked. Otherwise, I wouldn't have probably ever had him in my team. But I do think Newcastle defence are good. I just, like I say, it's not really for me about the defensive decision. It's about who they're actually facing, and I think Brentford have the opportunity to score. Nico Williams is a worry. He was a sub at half time. Kind of need the bench in game week 12. Yeah, potentially. I think is Forest have signed so many players that finding their best 11 has maybe been a bit tricky. I think in some ways, maybe not for Forest fans, but us as FPL managers, I think their manager just signed a new contract, so we can anticipate that their team are probably going to be relatively unchanged for the most part. So Nico's got to start all the way up until this point. So I wouldn't necessarily say he's a worry just yet. But maybe it's a wait and see for the Villa game. If he gets subbed or he doesn't start against Villa, then definitely I think, right, you've got to maybe look at other options for game week 12. Or, like I mentioned, try and bank the 2 free transfers. Like, whatever you do, just try. Because even if you have to take a -4 in 12... In fact, I think, actually, I would even say playing 10 players over a -4 would maybe be better. Especially if you've got Arsenal and City assets in place. You might as well just keep them. Because game week 13 onwards is really good for them. Thinking of bringing in Justin and Mings and remove Cancelo and Emerson. Yeah, I mean, that's not bad. I think Villa defence, what would that be? Would that be from game week 12? Tanoki. And yeah, we have time as well, so we can assess a little bit more. It's game week 10, 2 game weeks ahead of that. Well, sorry, you've got essentially 2 game weeks inclusive of game week 10 to think about that Nico move. But yeah, I definitely think the game week 12 blank is going to be giving a few managers a headache. But I think what we might see is people really dissecting their teams and not thinking about the long term. Whereas if you can, again, slowly make the decisions, don't rashly transfer people in, just think about it, slow down. Maybe playing 10 players, like I say, is better than the -4. So, yeah, thinking to play 10, but the fear of missing out is real. I agree, mate. I think that extra player, there can always be damage done. But I think in the long run, it's going to be better if you play the 10 with the City and Arsenal assets. That's my personal take on it. Tanoki likely will have to be since I took my 2 transfers today. Yeah, fair enough. Simpa, I have 5 in midfield. Zaha, Diaz, Andreas, Gross, De Bruyne, and defence, Trippier, Cucurella, Cancelo. Attack Haaland and Jesus. Should I play Trent and bench Andreas? I personally would, mate. The thing is that, like, again, you're going to look at the situation and be like, well, on paper, surely West Ham is a better fixture for Fulham or for Andreas individually. But I think Trent, from a statistical standpoint, even though Liverpool have looked woeful defensively, him included as the personal asset, you don't hold Trent for that reason. You want him because he's on direct free kicks, corners, he's got that attacking prowess. So against Arsenal, I think he could deliver, right? You just think that long ball over the top to Salah or Diaz is a very real potential against Arsenal when they play such a high line. So I think that Trent, by far, in my opinion, should be the option ahead of Andreas. Should I triple captain Haaland? So try hard, kiddo. We've mentioned this already on the stream. I don't think it's a bad option. It's just about the decision as to why you're doing it. If you're doing it as a catch-up mechanic or just some kind of you had maybe a bit of a rough week last week and you think that you should do it, I would say personally hold fire, wait until the new year as we get plenty of double game weeks in this game. So if it's your first season, if you're new to it and you weren't aware of what that means, basically we get blank game weeks like we are in 12 with City and Arsenal, which means that those fixtures are rearranged. And I think that Haaland, when he plays a double game week, that's going to be the time you need to be thinking about triple captaining him. So I would say hold fire on that chip. Suraj, what do I think about Trossard? I like him as an asset, but I think he is 100%, like Tanoki said, a bandwagon pick. I think that fixtures create form. He has gone against the grain a little bit and scored a hat-trick against Liverpool. That's not going to happen every week. I think that he's got a tremendous amount of attacking threat in him. He's great as an FPL option, but I don't think the fixtures are right for him. His army, I am hoping for Jesus to get his 5th yellow card and make my plan transfer real easy in game week 11. That is actually a really good point. I forgot that he's on 4 yellow cards, isn't he? So that's actually a perfect scenario, really, isn't it? If he gets a yellow today, which against Liverpool, that's likely. That's actually likely that he might even miss the Leeds game, which could be huge. Dr. Kaim Hamza, free hit. I'm not a fan, mate. Again, it goes back to the same, let's say, logic of the triple captain use. Free hits, in my opinion, are meant to be used for, just 1 week punts, double game weeks, blank game weeks, and so on. Tanoki, I'm looking at some of the squad values, and I was thinking maybe I should have gone further for squad value since we have 3 wildcards. Well, Tanoki, that was my plan with the international break. I thought I could really kind of, hone in and catch a lot more price rises than I did. But actually, longer term, not in that week in isolation, but actually with Maddison, with Zaha, Haaland, of course, pretty much everybody owns anyway. And Trippier, there's been some really, really good rises that I've caught, which I'm happy with. I don't think it's going to be a massive issue though, because if you think the squad value overall, once you start selling the players, if say for example you sold Haaland, you get what 0.3, 0.4 extra. It's not massive. By the time we get to the internationals or the World Cup for the unlimited transfers, you're going to be holding fire with the people that you've got value tied into anyway. You're not going to sell them instantly. You're going to wait. You're going to wait and see what players start showing form. Bora TV, start Nico or Trent. Got to be Trent, mate. Arman, at this point, do we avoid more than 2 premiums in midfield and attack? A cheap midfield option seemed to be scoring, like premiums like Son, Bruno and Salah not performing. Well, look at my team. I mean, I've gone with Sterling as a kind of semi-premium, let's say, right? He's that 10 million mark like Bruno. You're right that they're not performing. Sterling was the pick of the bunch for me in terms of fixtures, right? Over Salah, over Son, over Fernandes. He made the option to kind of reach that premium level. I think 2 premiums, though, is the capacity. I wouldn't go any more than 2. Ward or Pope? Got to be Ward, mate. Got to be Ward. His army, looking at your team, are you getting Salah in game week 12 and captaining him? I mean, to be honest, that was the plan originally, but I'm not sure now. I'm really not sure because I need to see obviously these next few games from Salah. He only got obviously a small return against Brighton. I think he was very unlucky though. He did have opportunities to score. I think I want to see again a little bit more from him in these next few games, but that was the plan. What I would do in that scenario is I'd probably upgrade Sterling to Salah and I would downgrade Diaz. I don't think I'd want both Diaz and Salah in the team. That would be the moves that I make for game week 12 probably. Armin, well, the premium defenders ain't scoring, so you have to spend the money. Yeah, I mean, it's a tricky situation. I think I personally though I think 2 premiums is, like you say, avoid more than 2. There's no need to go any more than 2 premiums, to be honest. Like Kane and Haaland is probably, let's say the optimal at the moment based on form. You could say De Bruyne and Haaland, but with City blanking in 12, it's just hard to say, like, transfer him in when he blanks. It's just very difficult to give that advice. So I would say Kane and Haaland are probably the outright winners in the premium brackets. Took a -8 selling Perisic, Diaz, Martinelli for James, Zaha and Trossard. What do you think? I mean, I think, to be honest, the Trossard pick probably could have been avoided. But again, the thing is, because Martinelli, I think he might do something against Liverpool and then he's got Leeds next week. So I find that a little bit kind of, it depends on how much money you needed to free up. Diaz to Zaha, I don't mind that. I think, Diaz, he's not started the last game, Premier League game that is. Maybe he's a bit risky. I like Reece James as well, but do I think that all of those moves are justified for a -8? Probably not. I would have slowed down on those maybe a little bit more. Agama, Wilson or Martial for Isak? Well, we've mentioned this on the channel as well before. I do think Wilson is a relatively short-term FPL asset, and the reason being is because he's so injury-prone. He is on penalties. I think he works well with Eddie Howe. We've seen that when he was at Bournemouth. He's a solid option, so I probably prefer him over Martial at the moment, just because I think he doesn't get as many minutes as Rashford does as the number 9, and I think Man United from game week 14 onwards are probably better options. So I would say Wilson. Probably would have just done Diaz to Zaha and kept the 8 points. Yeah, indeed, yeah. Back up, we've got another triple captain Haaland. And Gamer Coco 12. Look at this. The triple captainers coming out of the woodwork. Listen, the best advice I can give, and again, sorry for anybody retrospectively watching this stream, but I've mentioned it already. You just need to be doing it on a double game week, right? Like, I won't go into any more detail than that. It's just, the simple fact is that if you're doing it as a catch-up now, it just won't make sense. It will 100% be better to triple captain him on a double. So just hold fire with it. I think he can absolutely smash against Southampton, but just wait. Don't press it yet. Sell Martinelli for Bowen, and then after game week 12, getting Xhaka in place of Andreas. That's from an FPL standpoint, I think that's a little bit punty. I don't like selling Martinelli, to be honest. I really do think at this point, it depends on how much value you've got tied up in him, but I just think that holding him against Leeds next week, surely he's just a must keep. Like, Xhaka's definitely not a like-for-like replacement in terms of that Arsenal attack. Ara, keep Gordon or Gundogan? I mean, they're a little bit different, really, aren't they, in terms of price points and players. I like Gundogan as an option, but it's a minutes risk for me. As a City asset, yes, he's great, but does he play all the time? No, he doesn't. So I think maybe at this point you just keep Gordon, or you just think about a different move. Yeah, Martial is injury prone as well, to be honest. I actually didn't mention that when that question was asked. I focused more on Wilson than Martial, and yes, Martial is an injury risk, so both of those picks maybe are not the way forward. Shiharia, sorry if I butchered that name, Justin or Gahey. I personally like James Justin as the pick. I think he probably provides a little bit more attacking threat than Gahey does. So, Agoma, what strike should I bring in? I have 7.7 million for a striker. It's really difficult, to be honest. I mean, at this point now, because Mitrovic is flagged, of course, right? So you don't want to bring him in now. But if you can wait, then I would say possibly wait, because he plays Bournemouth next week. So Mitrovic next week for me is it's just got to be a fixture that you look at and target. Tony's a little bit tricky at that price point because he plays Brighton and Chelsea next, which is where he arguably could get moved around by even myself, to be honest. So it's a bit difficult. I would say Tony and Mitrovic are the standout picks for me. I know they're in my team and it's a bit of bias, but they're the options. You could maybe take a punt on Watkins. That's the only other kind of 7+ million striker that I would look at. Prabnor. Sorry, I've just butchered that name, haven't I? So sorry about that, mate. Perisic, Bay to Reece James and Trossard. Can you not just do Perisic to Reece James? I think you just, even though Bailey's injured, maybe you just leave that. I'm not a fan of the Trossard pick. Martinelli is against Trent, so hopefully he hauls. And this is the thing. I think people are forgetting that Trent defensively has looked woeful this season, and Martinelli plays on that side. I just think that he's going to have... It's just not a sell for me ahead of this fixture. My opinion about Castagna, I like him. I think ever since his injury, though, he's not really looked as attacking as he did when he first joined. But I do like him. I think, again, he's a defensive option for Leicester that plays quite far forward at times. So, yeah, sure, as a differential. Bench Mitro or Justin. Tempt him to just start with Justin. It's exactly what I'm doing, mate. I'm just going to bench Mitro. Even if he plays, yes, he could do something against West Ham. I'm just backing that Leicester score more. Sorry, Justin scores more points than Mitro in isolation, and that Leicester do keep that clean sheet. Jack Hawley, team has some issues. Ward, Guaita. So I'd probably go with Guaita ahead. I'm not fully convinced on that. Of course, that is a bit of my team bias in there, but I think I'd go with Guaita. James, Cancelo, Trent, very, very solid back three. I think I still play Trent, even though he's got Arsenal. Maddison, Salah, Martinelli, Andreas, or Nico. And then Tony, Haaland, Mitro. What would I do? So I would probably bench Mitro. No, I'd probably keep Mitro on. And then I would probably put Nico Williams as the first sub. That's how I would play that. So I'd play Guaita, James, Cancelo, Trent. I'd then play Maddison, Salah, Martinelli as the three midfielders. And then I think, Nico is the first sub, I think. Agoma. I have Isak and Mitrovic both injured on the bench, so I'm looking for a striker. Okay. In that scenario, I think you've got to look at really the best two options then for me are Ivan Toney or Watkins. I just think I would stay away from Wilson. That's my personal take on it. I apologise in ahead of time that if he goes and hauls against Brentford, he maybe is a good option. I'm just not convinced on him. Yacino, sorry, I did talk about Castagna if you missed it. I do think he's a good option. I do. I think, he's an attacking threat. He hasn't really proved much form in recent times. After his serious injury, and he was out for quite a significant amount of time, I don't necessarily think he was he absolutely smashed it by any means since he's come back, but he's still a good option. Jack, I'm thinking Salah and garbage bench out for Foden and Zaha. I mean, they are very, very good moves, to be honest. Foden and Zaha, well, I would say Zaha's probably going to be the number one target. So if you're looking at a -4 for that, then maybe you just change someone for Zaha. Maybe even go down far as Salah to Zaha. It might be tempting to use the money now, but I think Foden on the back of a hat-trick, he isn't necessarily going to do that every week. He's a very good FPL asset, but I think he's further down the chain for me in terms of transfers for you. And also you've got the game week 12 blank. So my personal opinion on that is if you really don't think that Salah's going to do anything against Arsenal, then maybe you go down to Zaha for him. Start McAllister or Tony. Going to have to be Tony for me. Armin, I want to take a risk to get Barnes instead of Zaha. Is that a risk worth taking? Listen, I like Barnes as a differential. Again, I mentioned him as a potential option, but I just don't think you can really put them in the same bracket. Zaha, for me, he's on penalties. He's, he's just, for me, he's an overall maybe better pick. He's Crystal Palace's talisman, whereas Barnes just kind of fits into a Leicester attacking side as part of that front three. So it's really difficult to kind of say it's worth taking, but it is a differential pick, so you may get some returns from both. Should I triple captain Haaland? Joe, this has been like I think one of the number one hot topics, that and James Justin, to be honest. I think again, just watch the stream back retrospectively. I think I've spoken about it enough now. Just literally target a double game week instead, bud. Don't use that chip yet. Will Robertson start next week? Maybe. I think, Tsimikas is a good backup option for Klopp, so I'm not 100% convinced that he has to start. If he's an injury risk, then I don't know. I feel like it could be difficult, especially with European fixtures in the mix. Klopp's not going to want to risk him. His army, I don't have Maddison and cover him with Bowen and Rashford. Your thoughts on that? I have one free transfer. I mean, I don't think really you can look at Bowen and Rashford as cover for Maddison. I would say Barnes would be like the argument for cover for Maddison. If you're talking about similar price points, then I do like Bowen as an option. I still think he's a very, very good pick. He did play quite a lot of minutes in Europe though, so maybe he's a bit of a minutes reduction this week. And for Rashford, I would just say that, again, yes, he's come on the back of 2 European goals, and I'm a Man United fan. Of course, I want to be able to back my team across FPL as well, but we're just not... The fixtures don't look good enough for us from an FPL standpoint. I just think wait till game week 14 onwards for United assets, personally. That's my take on it anyway. You've got to remember, we played a Cypriot team in Europe, right? When we only won that game 3-2, it wasn't as if we just smashed them 6-0. Like, yes, Rashford and Martial and all these players, they look great, but anyone can look great against a Cypriot team. I'm sorry to say it, but we are literally, the calibre in terms of difficulty is huge. So I can't get on board with United assets at the moment. All right, I have 2 free transfers, Zaha and Isak, Watkins or Gundogan to Zaha, Watkins or Gundogan, Zaha and Isak to Aubameyang. I mean, I think Gordon to Zaha is a very good move. If you can do that in isolation, just as the one transfer, I like it. Isak to Watkins. I mean, as a 7-point-something million striker, I don't think he's horrendous, but I'm not convinced on Villa. So I would say potentially you go for Aubameyang instead, but again, I just don't know. I don't know about him as an asset, really. From me, my perspective is just use the one transfer and maybe only go for Zaha. Fazid Ali, Saka replacement, Foden, Bowen, Trossard or any other. If you're looking for a Saka replacement, my opinion would probably be Zaha first option, then Maddison potentially second, and then I'd probably go with Bowen as the third option. What's my stance on Kane? I do like him as an option. I think, to be honest, Spurs, he is again one of the talismans of Tottenham. So he's on penalties. I think him and Haaland probably make the 2 premium slots for me. Mings for Fofana, good run of fixtures for Villa. Fofana's injured till November, so yeah, sure, I like it as an easy pick. Mitrovic out for Martial. Already spoken about United assets. I just don't think that we can jump onto them. Just not yet anyway. Yeah, that's so true. Thanks, man. Appreciate one more question. If I don't go for Foden, I can go Salah to Zaha and then Mitro or Tony out for Kane, or even upgrade 3.9 to Nico. I think, from Nico to someone else. I think, yeah, if you went to, like we said, if you go for Salah to Zaha, I think then you probably look at maybe Tony out for Kane in game week 11. That kind of looks very, very promising for me, because then it gives you a potential... I mean, it maybe gives you a bit of a captaincy headache, but I think I like that move. It gives you a really good Spurs fixture in 11. You've taken out, arguably, maybe Salah does well against City, but you've taken out an asset that's a very expensive asset for based on his performances. I personally just think you don't take any sort of -4 if you've got 2 free transfers. Sorry, I can't remember, Jack, but just go Salah to Zaha and keep the money until next week. Any updates on his injury? I don't think there's any updates on Mitro's injury yet, no, but I'm just personally benching him and going with James Justin. If Alvarez and Haaland start together this week and in the Champions League, would Alvarez be a good option for a differential? 100%, mate. I absolutely think he looks phenomenal, but I just think that's exactly what he is. He's a differential. Izami, another little shout out. Thank you very much, mate. Appreciated. Jack Hawley, and by the way, it's about a 50-50 that Mitro doesn't play. Indeed, I just think that for me, I want him for Bournemouth, so I'm not going to sell him. I'm just going to bench him for Justin. Cheers, mate. Also, what Pope or Ward? I've mentioned, I think Ward is probably going to be the option for me ahead of Pope. And do we have a Liverpool predicted lineup? I'm not sure, to be honest. I haven't got any apologies. I'm absolutely rubbish on Twitter, to be honest, in terms of like knowing who to trust in terms of any team leaks, to be honest. I'll need to up my game with that and just try and get some better sources, but I haven't got any predicted lineups, mate. It's a little bit tricky at this time anyway. We're only at 12:20. Shout out to everybody that's subscribed to the channel, by the way. Thank you so much. I think we're closing in closely onto 400, or about, so 395 now. So thank you so much for all the support, guys. Really appreciate that. Really appreciate it. Brighton or Spurs? Well, I think Spurs may win the game, but I don't think it's going to be easy. I could sense that being easily just a 1-0, to be honest with you, Mitchie. I think Brighton at the Amex have been absolutely phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. So really difficult. Joan Burge, start Mitro. Personally, I think if you've got bench cover, you can cover him. Don't transfer him out. I just think it's silly, because you're going to want him against Bournemouth next week, right? So he looks like he's pretty much, in terms of updates, he looks like he's going to be okay for Bournemouth. So keep him for that. I just think if you've got a bench cover, it could be Nico, could be someone else like James Justin in my case, just play someone ahead of him. That's my advice. I mean, across other content creators, I've seen that people have said just start him, and then if he doesn't play, your first bench comes on, which is also another option. For me personally, I'm just happy with James Justin's capabilities, to either match what Mitrovic could do against West Ham or do more. Excuse me, guys. Right, so we're at 20 past 12. I think, to be honest, I'm going to wrap up or start to wrap up the stream now, guys. I know it's still about an hour away from deadline, but I thought I'd do an earlier stream. Wife and the daughter are up and about, so I'm going to go spend time with them ahead of the fixtures in the afternoon. So listen, really, really good luck for game week 10. Appreciate all the support. Like I say, we almost hit that 400 mark on the subscription count, which is absolutely great. The support of the channel has just been phenomenal, guys. So really, really appreciate the support. I think, to be honest, it's been a good season so far for me. So really appreciate spending the time with me and coming on the journey with me. We're hoping to push up the ranks massively, of course, but I hope my advice pays off. And I know, Tanoki, you've been dishing out lots of advice as well. So thank you for your support across the channel as well, mate. You're always a regular on here, so massive shout out to you. I think, feel free to join me on the next live stream, which will probably be next week. I think, is it a Friday deadline next week? I can't remember if it's a Friday night game. It is a Friday night, so that'll be good. We'll do a Friday night stream for a couple of hours. So look forward to that. And in terms of videos, I put out probably some kind of reaction stream at the weekend at some point, or reaction video, should I say. Just plenty of content coming your way through the season. So thank you so much again for the support, guys. And I'll see you in the next video. Take care for now. All the best of luck again.